was Libya. What to do the day after. We got Benghazi. And she would not accept any responsibility in the statement of the president's admission of his worst time in office was the Libya. Let's go back on the timeline of Bernie Sanders, just so you'll have some information. And I am reading from the Bernie Sanders timeline by Laura Sanders, who I believe is a member of his family. In January 1962, as a Congress of Racial Inequality called CORE officer, a 20-year-old Sanders leads students in a multi-week sit-in to oppose segregation in off-campus housing owned by the University of Chicago. He really sat down for what he believed in, if you'll excuse the pun. And this was weeks. I've been in a core group of a grassroots organization called We the People Oklahoma. Not necessarily now, but before in the past. You really have to be committed and have time to devote to that grassroots group and the actions that they are promoting. So I think he was a core officer, which means he had to really dedicate himself to this. He really believed in it. It was part of his core character, if you will. And he was 20 years old when he did that. The next year in August, he was an organizer for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Sanders takes an overnight bus with fellow activists for his first ever trip to Washington, D.C. He hears Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic "I Have a Dream" speech firsthand at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedoms. There are pictures of him at that place. Now, if we fast forward to the 80s, in 1981, in a stunning upset, Sanders wins the memorial race in Burlington, Vermont's largest city. That's largest cities in Vermont. It's Burlington. And he won it. This is the race where he won it by 10 votes. That's why I say your vote matters. Please get registered to vote. So should you want to vote, then you'll be able to. Running as an independent, he shocks the city's political establishment by defeating a 6-term local machine mayor. That's hard to do locally. Once people know the name, they rarely vote against the person. In 83, he won 52% of the vote, defeating his closest challenger by 21 points to be re-elected to second term as mayor. Burlington sets a record for voter turnout as the Sanders campaign energizes thousands of new voters. Kind of like now, it's millions. And 84, he established the Burlington Community Land Trust. It was the first municipal housing land trust in the country for affordable housing. See, he really cared, and he planned, and he accomplished. The project becomes a model emulated throughout the world. Wow, I didn't know this. It later wins an award from the Jack Kemp-led HUD, H-U-D, HUD. Wow, it became a model emulated throughout the world. That alone is amazing. Okay, that's cool. All right, well, have a safe trip home. Don't be on the phone. So I don't want anything to happen to you. All right, I'm talking to someone in the chat room. Let me check my... All right, I still have calls on the Blog Talk Radio. But you know what? That's okay. I wonder if I can... See, I don't know if this is... I don't know. Well, let's go over this timeline quickly so I don't bore you to tears. So, he does this housing land trust, and it's emulated through the world. In 2001, I'm pretty proud of this one. Not like I did this. But I'm proud of him that he did this, I should say. Sanders votes against the Patriot Act, USA Patriot Act. It had a lot of amendments to it that were just not cool. Like how they could listen in on your conversations on the media, the phone, or, all different types of stuff. see. And his quote is on his refusal to vote for it. He says this, quote, all of us want to protect the American people from terrorist attacks, but in a way that does not undermine the basic freedoms, end quote. And that's what he says at the time. He subsequently votes against reauthorizing the law in 2006 and 2011. It's no longer in effect, by the way. In 2002, he voted against the Bush-Cheney war in Iraq. He's one of the few that voted against it. Please understand that Hillary Clinton voted for it. Like I said, she hasn't met a war that she wouldn't vote for. And that includes her trying to get us into the Syria mess. At the time he voted against the Bush-Cheney war, he warned at the time that an invasion could result in anti-Americanism, instability, and more terrorism. End quote. Would you say that's right? From your ability to look at the situation, I think he was correct, unfortunately. There was a lot of anti-Americanism against us because we put our nose where it didn't belong. Weapons of mass destruction, that was a lie. I have no reason to say that Bush knew or did not know, so I'll refrain from saying anything like that. Now, Sarah Sanders. Let's see. Okay, November 93, there was the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. Clinton was the husband, was very much in favor of this. He voted against it. And it's caused a lot of problems in America. We've lost a lot of businesses where it's cheaper to go to Mexico or other countries. Sanders said this at the time of the North American Free Trade Agreement. Says this, I wish I could imitate his voice. If NAFTA passes, corporate profits will soar because it will be even easier than now for American companies to flee to Mexico and hire workers there for starvation wages. And what happened? Exactly what he said. So, in July 1996, Sanders is one of only 67 votes against the Discriminatory Defense of Marriage Act. Can you believe that happened? Well, look it up. It was 1996. It was called the Defense of Marriage Act. It denied federal benefits to same-sex couples legally married. Like even if they got married in Europe, which they could at that time, they would not be able to get federal benefits. Sanders urged the Supreme Court to throw out the law, which they did in a landmark 2013 ruling, 17 years later. So at July 1999, he stood up against major pharma companies. I don't know how you feel about pharmaceuticals, but he stood up against them. They do have a lot of power. He became the first member of Congress to take seniors across the border to Canada to buy lower-cost prescription drugs. The congressman continues his bus trips to Canada with a group of breast cancer patients the following April. Well, that's a renegade. I like that type of renegade. These brave women are able to purchase their medications in Canada for almost 1/10 of the price that they could in the States. Wouldn't you want someone like that on your side? That not only talks the talk, but will drive you there? That's amazing. And again, perhaps you should check out some of this information yourself. Don't believe anyone when they say different things. Check it out for yourself. But I'm telling you where I got this. So, my battery's running low. Hold on. I gotta plug in the computer. I hope I sound okay. I've had some problems with my audio on Spreaker. There goes the phone. We'll have to see how I sound. Looks like I'm a little bit loud. Sorry. So they went to Canada. Wow, there's just so much that he has done. Let's see. Well, let's look at November 2006. Let's go back to that year, okay? Sanders defeats Vermont's richest man. Apropos, his name is Rich. Tarrant to be elected to the U.S. Senate. So he beat big money. Sanders ran as an independent at the time, was endorsed by the Vermont Democratic Party and supported by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. He's always worked very closely with Democrats. I think he just felt comfortable with that label at that time of independent. The labels have changed, so has their definitions and the world's perceptions of the parties. So that's a good thing to remember. He is a progressive, and within the Democratic Party, we have a large portion of us, I'm a Democrat, known as progressives. Okay, in December 2007, the renegade senator, I think he was, no, yes, he was elected to the U.S. Senate at this point. He authored an energy efficiency and conservation grant program, and it passed into law. He later secures $3.2 billion in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 for the grant program. So not only did he pass it and he didn't just leave it alone, he got it funded. Great guy. September 2008. Thanks to Sanders' efforts, funding for the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program funding doubles, helping millions of low-income Americans heat their homes in winter. I must say that I benefited from that program. I have benefited from that program. It has been life-saving in certain areas of the country, like Nebraska, where people freeze to death, like Pine Ridge Reservation. People freeze to death there. If you want to donate to a worthy program, they have different ones for heaters for the Pine Ridge Reservation for the Sioux Nation. So if you ever want to give, it goes directly to the families. They buy the heaters. Heaters go to the family. So they don't have to worry about freezing to death. And that is a real issue. I know that's a side thing, but it's real. It's real. Let me take a look at my blog talk. Okay, I'm in overtime. It's supposed to say I'm in overtime. Oh, I see my Adobe crashed. I have no idea if they... Well, Blog Talk Radio, if you're listening to me, I'm going to end the episode because I don't know if you can hear me. But we'll do this again earlier tomorrow. Since it's a Friday night, we'll do it earlier in the afternoon, probably around 3 o'clock. If anybody's listening on Spreaker, you can call in or log this number in your phone. It's 929-477-1696. That's my call-in number for Blog Talk Radio. And I will have a call-in number for Spreaker fairly soon. All right, let me go ahead and push that. Hopefully yes, I want to end it. I want to end it. Call in tomorrow. Goodbye. All right. So I've been regurgitating some information that you can find on the internet yourself. I believe in Sanders. And I really take a good look at his supporters. They're young, they're independent, they're free-thinking, they check out what you say, and they're consistent, kind of like he is. He's consistent, they're consistent. So I don't know if you've decided who you're going to vote for. If you want to discuss things, we can most certainly do that by calling into the Blog Talk Radio show that I have. Again, it's called Political Woodstock. I started an LLC called Political Woodstock Media. So it's to affect social change through media. If you want to join and do something in your local area, we can talk. You can email me at politicalwoodstock@gmail.com and we can talk about it. I also want to mention in January 2015, this is something that's close to my heart, he votes against the Keystone XL pipeline that would allow multinational corporations like TransCanada to transport dirty tar sands oil from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. We already have a pipeline. It's called the Catoosa Pipeline, and that was built from Alaska to Catoosa, Oklahoma. We can use that. I don't understand why they want to build the Keystone one, other than there's money in building it and owning it. So in May of 2015, Sanders declares his candidacy for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. You can go to BertieSanders.com. You can go